Aaron Sorkin is one of the most critically acclaimed television writers working in Hollywood today. After flirting with a career in acting, he found that his true calling lay in writing. In his late 20s, he penned A Few Good Men for the stage. Later, the film version would go on to earn 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. In recent years, his work has brought political themes to the mainstream. While writing The American President in 1995, the idea for a television drama was born. Last month, The West Wing won 9 Emmys, including awards for Best Drama and Best Writing. The show's season premiere attracted 25 million viewers, and here is a look. Joining me now, Aaron Sorkin, the creator of West Wing. First of all, congratulations. You had a great premiere episode.
Yeah, it was more than we ever could have hoped for. It was phenomenal. More people watched us than watched Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and I didn't think that was possible. You know, I should mention in the clip that you just showed, so people who know that Martin Sheen plays the president don't think what's the president doing in the middle of O'Hare Airport. That clip was from the season opening 2-parter, in which we go into extended flashback sequences and show to 3 years ago and show how all these people came to the campaign in the first place. And he is, in that scene, a former governor of New Hampshire. And nothing.
When you created the president, what was in your mind?
The president
of the West Wing.
Yeah. First of all, originally when I thought about the show, I didn't think I was going to have a president on the show. I thought I really wanted to write a show about the senior staffers. I thought the president is really going to kind of take up all the air in the room, and it's going to become about him. But then in thinking about it, I thought, gee, this is going to seem awfully hokey. We'll kind of always have just missed him as he goes around a corner. We'll see the back of his neck. It's going to be silly. So I just had him come in really the last 3 minutes of the pilot episode. You've almost forgotten that there's a president in this White House someplace, and Martin Sheen makes his entrance. And in fact, when we hired Martin, the plan was, in fact, I think the deal was that he would do 4 out of 12 episodes, that kind of thing. The president would be a recurring character on the show. We all had a great time making the pilot, and we said, Martin, how about we make this a full-time job, and you do this every week? And he said, sure. Yeah. And we did that. But in terms of what I had in mind, and I tend, by the way, not to have a lot in mind. There really isn't much planning that goes on. I don't do outlining. I really don't put index cards up on a bulletin board. I'm kind of feeling my way in the dark a little bit. But by and large, it's my father.
It's your father?
Yeah. In many, many ways. My father is very romantic about doing the right thing. And he is he's also a bit of a pain in terms of learning. He's the kind of father who, when you were doing your homework and you went to him to ask him how to spell a word, he would bring the dictionary over, and now you had to learn the etymology of the word and the Latin root of the word, and really you just wanted to learn how to spell the word. So Martin's character Bartlett, is also a teacher in this, and will tend to drive the staff to distraction just with facts that he wants them to know, whether it's about national parks or the Latin word for yam.
Okay, forgive me, Mr. Sorkin. Is your father alive and well?
Yes, he is alive and he's well. He's a copyright expert for Time Warner. And,
oh, that's right. I knew that.
Yeah.
Now, what does he think of the character modeled after him?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that he knows that the character is modeled after him.
You have never said this before?
He certainly will now.
But I will guarantee you he will. There'll be a tape in the mail this afternoon to Time Warner saying, by the way, sir, are you getting your royalties?
And that's what he's going to insist on. And he, by the way,
because you, after all, have copyrighted your name and personality.
That's right. He, I've enjoyed so much watching my father enjoy my career. When back in 1989, when A Few Good Men opened on Broadway, he takes the train in from Scarsdale every day to Grand Central, and then goes to Rockefeller Center to go to work. He would walk every day, blocks out of his way, just to walk by the marquee of the theater. So it absolutely fills me with joy.
Just to look up and see.
Exactly right. But he goes around the world testifying and arguing against artist rights because his client, Time Warner Inc., insists that he does. And he's often asked, Mr. Sorkin, how would your son feel about this testimony? And he goes, my son is fine. It's his mother that I'm going to be in trouble with.
Yeah, what is she like?
Well, she's terrific. She's a retired public school teacher here, and it's really between the two of them who and I have an older brother and an older sister, and they're both lawyers, and the three of us really grew up in a culture of education is terribly important, and being a mensch, whatever it is that means to you, you have to try and do that. You have to try and do right.
Are you just telling a story here, or does this have a message? Does this say something about democracy, something about the way power ought to work, and something about the values that we can hope for?
Well, I think that we have to hope for a lot, and I think that we have to try for a lot, it's probably no secret to anyone who's watched The West Wing, to anyone who saw the film The American President, that right. I grew up in kind of an FDR right. Family, and I'm asked often, in fact, did I ever consider making this White House a Republican? And it probably wouldn't have made that much difference to the storytelling, except I wouldn't have been allowed back at my parents' house for Thanksgiving and family get-togethers.
Okay, but what's the difference in your president and the American president's president? What's the difference
and Michael Douglas's president? Well, the American President was a romantic comedy. They obviously, they share a lot of similarities. They both, and what, this is true for almost every character in every story that I'll write. I'm not so much interested in the difference between good and evil, between bad and good, as I am the difference between good and great. That usually the people that will meet, whether it's Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men or Michael Douglas in The American President, any of the people in The West Wing, they're all fine people. You like them, as I say, you'd want to have them come over for dinner. They'd never intentionally hurt anybody, but chances are their flaw is going to be that what they've got right now they want to protect, and they don't want to take a risk to do better. Caffey, Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, we hear he's a terrific plea bargainer. He's the best at it. He's in the Navy for 3 years so he can pay back the government because they paid for him to go to law school. Right. He's going to lay low until, as they say, he can get out and get a real job. Michael Douglas is doing fantastically well in the polls when we meet him. He's a terrific quarterback of this group. He's very charismatic. Everybody likes him. He's got no problems, and we watch them all kind of risk that to achieve something better.
This season, what was the challenge for this season?
There were quite a few challenges for this. The recent success that The West Wing had, I don't think any of us saw coming, and it began with last May we got the Peabody Award, and then the television critics gave us Program of the Year, and with the Emmys, we were crossing our fingers hoping we'd be invited to the party, and we ended up breaking the record for
big shootout with The Sopranos.
That's right, and then this the premiere of The West Wing. Again, we didn't know if any of those things would translate into viewers. There was a lot of competition that night. A lot of shows were premiering, so we honestly, I thought it was a typo when they faxed me the numbers. The challenge always.
What was the market share?
It was 26 share.
26 share.
I am. It's a little over the quarter of people watching television were watching The West Wing, and which is, needless to say, much more than we've ever done. Unless there is some freakish stampede of an audience to another show before the end of the week, we'll end up the #1 show. Actually, we'll end up #1 and #2 because it was a 2-part episode. The second part edging out the first part by about 35 viewers or something like that.
I got a big question for you, but first, take a look at this. This is a scene from the premiere right here. Now, what's interesting about that is that clearly I mean, you can't create more drama. I mean, this is like JR.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a surefire attention getter.
Well, it was a surefire attention getter, and some of the attention not what we'd hoped. The season finale last year ended. The last 2 minutes were unlike anything else in the previous 22 episodes. The president and his group, basically the cast of our show, leaving a building in Roslyn, Virginia, after a live nationally televised town hall meeting, are shot at from a window in an office building across the street. And in a show that basically is about people in rooms talking to each other, in nice rooms talking to each other. It was a moment that I think surprised fans of the show because it was physical and violent and odd for this show. But I think also just because the show had and it ended with us not knowing what had happened. We went to black very quickly after the gunshots. We hear
wait till next season.
Exactly right. And I think that that there were people who felt that just doing a cliffhanger and one so reminiscent of Who Shot JR was somehow beneath
that would be
the
your
West
first
Wing.
instinct.
And I was so pleased to discover that something can be beneath me. I didn't even know I had gotten there. But I also knew that it was actually the one thing in the entire season that I had planned in advance because I knew where I wanted to get to. In other words, I knew that I wanted to start the premiere this year about 60 seconds after the finale had ended, and I wanted to be able to go into these flashback scenes, and this is how I was going to do it.
In terms of flashbacks, in terms of a whole lot of things about the development of a life.
Absolutely, yeah. When I say flashbacks, that's actually usually a bad word in storytelling, and this is where the comparison ends. But it's more like Godfather 2. We're telling two parallel stories at once, 1 and 3 years ago.
Speaking of that, who influences you in terms of what you're doing?
Aside from the obvious Shakespeare and Odets and O'Neill and David Mamet has been a huge influence on me
because of the power of his work.
Power of his work, the power of his. I love dialogue, and I'm not a pure storyteller, and I get very nervous with plot. I always feel like it's going to seem phony. I'm moving a boulder along, and this is ridiculous that this would happen. Then, and I always think of plot as sort of this necessary thing I have to do so I can write dialogue, so I can sort of write crackly
but that's fascinating because I think of people like Clancy and those guys who are very popular novelists. What they seem to have more is just storytelling rather than dialogue.
That's the thing, and Clancy does, and Stephen King, and these are guys who you just know. When they were sitting around a campfire, they were the ones telling the stories, and I got a million of them. And let me tell you, and I'm not that guy. I really don't have a lot of stories, and it's a struggle for me.
Are you the guy that would, if you were having a conversation with somebody, would have a wonderful one-on-one conversation because you're curious about people and you're interested in what makes them tick? And
I am. I like people, and I am curious about them, and I like conversations. But I have to tell you, in the last few years, I've found more and more that I'm most comfortable more comfortable writing a conversation than I am having one, because I always find myself, as I am now, thinking, gee, this is terrible. If I could write this conversation that I'm having with Charlie Rose right now, and he could just put it on a screen crawl, and I could polish it up a few times, people would be much more impressed with me than they are right now. I always want to do a
Probably much more impressed with me, too. Maybe you could just send me questions. Every day from now on, I'll send you a list of who the guests are, and you'll just sort of send in, this is the conversation I can imagine would be perfect, and I'll try to achieve that perfection.
My favorite kinds of interviews to do will be when they will email me a few questions, and I can email my responses back.
No, we don't do that.
I know.
No, that wouldn't work.
Well, no, it wouldn't make good television.
But you think that you could make anything better because you have a finely honed sense of what good dialogue is.
That's for other people to judge.
Well, do you have any theater?
I love mostly I love the theater, and my parents, in addition to education and doing the right thing, took me to see plays from a very, very young age. They're not in show business, and not for any particular reason. They grew up going to the theaters as a matter of habit. And as a matter of fact, there is still in their living room up where they live, and they still live in the house where I grew up, a couple of cartons of old playbills. And I used to take these cartons out all the time, and they would, either my mother or my father would write in the corner on the front page of the playbill just the date, a little note, whether it was an anniversary or a birthday, and just a little one-line review of the thing. And growing up, I would just pour through these playbills, memorize the casts of plays. And they took me to, they didn't take me to kids' plays either. I saw that championship season when I was like 8 or something.
Yeah.
I had no business being there. I would, you used to be able to get, at least at my local library, you could get original cast recordings not just of musicals but of plays. And so I took out, and I think maybe never returned, the original cast recording of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah.
So here I was really 10, 11, 12. There was no way I could understand this play. But the music of the dialogue of these great
The rhythm
men
and the music and the...
Well, it really is music. You know what? Any sound that's meant for performance is going to be music. And dialogue has rhythm and pitch and tone and volume and meter, and it absolutely has all the properties of music. And you know it right away in a West Wing scene when somebody's dropped a syllable, because there's just one less beat in the measure, and the measure needed 4 beats, and you put 3
Wow. Could this series now run without you? Does it have its own momentum?
Well, I write every script. I write every episode of the series. And I should say that I have 2 partners, John Wells and Thomas Schlamme, who see to it that, I mean, even though I'm an executive producer of the show, and it's easy to get the impression that I'm sort of involved with a lot of aspects for the show, Tommy and John see to it that there's really nothing on my desk except writing the script, and these 2 guys are producing the show. I would like to think that if I didn't come into work Monday morning, that the West Wing would cease to exist. I'm sure it would go on and would be fine and would be great. And my biggest nightmare, and I think it's possible the reason why I do keep writing every script, is that I'm terrified that somebody else is going to do it and do it a lot better than I will, and my parking space will be gone.
All right, thank you very much, Aaron Sorkin. The West Wing can be seen weekly, 9 p.m. on NBC.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations on all those Emmys.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.